how many in this room right now can tell me the average age of the winner of the World Series of Poker in the United States?
16.
No. It's in the 20s. Actually, the average age in the past decade is 25. The majority are under 25. So this just shows that underage gambling, to be a pro at something, it takes time to be good at something. If they're winning the World Series of Poker, they had to have plenty of experience beforehand. My name is Nathan Kennedy, and today I'm going to be talking about underage gambling, education, and regulation upon it. So introduction, I'm going to start going into my problem description, try to explain how this underage gambling is happening, talk a little bit about prevention versus treatment, and then get into implementing my education and regulation change project. So the gambling environment right now, it's at a historic past. According to the World Health Organization, and specifically Abbott 2017, it says that gambling is one of the few culture sections that has been around since ancient times. Since people competed in the Olympics in Rome, people were betting on it. People were throwing down money depending on who was going to win, what was going on. Also, now coming into today, gambling is now online and land-based. So people could be gambling right now from their phones. People could be gambling in China, Asia, anywhere. Recently, there's been growth in the gambling industry in the last 1980s. Substantial growth, over double the gambling activity back then is now being experienced now. And then even to add to that growth, sports betting has now become legalized in the United States within the past 2 years. So not only can we experience it in casinos, can we experience it on our phones, but we can also now experience it at sporting events. Alone, the legal sporting betting environment, $3 billion in revenue within the US alone has been raised just by daily fantasy sports and fantasy sports. So just those two alone yields $3 billion just in the United States. So why is this so important? Well, whenever you talk about gambling disorder, gambling addiction, there are some serious health factors that are attributed to that. People who struggle with gambling disorder or gambling addiction, gambling-related problems, usually experience social, personal, academic, mental health, familial, and legal problems. What other kind of problems really are there? Similarity to substance abuse. So according to the World Health Organization and ZAO, gambling disorder and gambling addiction is similar to substance abuse disorders, and actually it is 3 times worse. The burden of harm is 3 times worse with gambling than it is for diabetes. And then the lack of awareness. Right now, in a study done by Abbott, adolescents aged 10 to 19 in the certain study found that they only think that gambling is a slight risk factor or a slight risk behavior and not a moderate or even a major risk behavior. So obviously they are not aware of any of these health disorders that they can see, and obviously they're not old enough to partake in any drugs or alcohol, so they don't even know what they're getting into, whereas substance abuse and gambling disorder are so similar that the health effects of it are all bad. So how does this affect the youth? Well, technology and gambling are merging. They're becoming convergent in the 21st century. As I stated before, the growth in mobile technology, video game technology has become important for the delivery and gambling activities. And as of right now, if any of the guys or gals in here have played Red Dead Redemption 2 or many other games, there are gambling activities in regular video games that are being portrayed, where these 10 to 19-year-olds, even younger than that, are playing these video games, and they're seeing these gambling activities as if they're no big deal. And we wonder why they think why they think it's only a slight behavior or a slight risk behavior. So the similarity to video games has been proven in an article by Zhao and Darevensky. It is shown that aesthetically and functionally, video games and gambling are the same. So whenever you sit down at a slot machine, put in your quarter, and all these flashing lights come up, ding, 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 whatever. In the video games, what's different when you're playing Madden and you get a touchdown and they start dancing and the lights go off? It's the same thing. It's entertainment. It's all one industry. So the youth prevalence rates for gambling disorder among adolescents in the United States are actually 2 to 4 times greater than adults. And adults are the ones who have the most availability, the most opportunity. So how are they finding these gambling sites? How are they finding these opportunities when it's not even legal? So talking about prevention or treatment, I believe that treating a disease after it happens is less effective than preventing a disease. So there are a few jurisdictions, according to Abbott, where gambling disorder and gambling-related harm are being addressed as public health issues, and obviously it needs to be taken more seriously. There is also more emphasis in this article on treatment rather than prevention. So why would you treat something but not try to prevent it originally? Also, according to McBride and Darabensky, the education community needs to develop significant prevention and awareness through education and information. So through my change project, what I strive to do is focus on prevention with a slight treatment aspect and focus on youth and technology specifically. So with education, what I would like to do is keep it sports related. With this change project, my major is sport business, so I wanted to try to keep this relevant to the discipline. Focus on parents, as parental disapproval of gambling is shown to correlate with lower overall gambling frequency among high schoolers, and also only more parental disapproval can predict less youth gambling, less youth mobile gambling, correction. And then also I would like to build awareness, because if these kids aren't finding out early enough that these things are serious, then they're not gonna know how to tackle it eventually. So with regulation, there's a lack in verification, in age verification. So whenever you go on to, one good example of this is the Juul website. So recently, the FDA has been tackling back against Juul with all the underage usage. So what they did is they put in place an age verification system where you had to have a valid driver's license, and you had to be able to go through that system on the Juul website. And then also regulation in mobile technology and age verification. This will help because whenever youth nowadays are getting cell phones so much sooner, so much easier. So it's private and it's easier for them to get to these gambling websites rather than sneak into a casino or try to go with their parents. So the implementation, my education change, I would like to partner with the NFL and the NFL teams to start out. Eventually, I would like to move to the MLB, MLS, and other leagues in the United States. And then I would like to run a seminar series with individual fan bases. So what I'd like to do is work also with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They have a great youth and education department there. So work with them, with their staff, and go to each fan base individually in each NFL team. So let's say we'd start in Cleveland and go individually all the way across the nation to all 32 teams, so we reach all those demographics, and teach them about video game similarities. So how are video games pulling these kids toward gambling, and also how can them being used to playing these video games not only make them good at gambling later on in life, but make them want to gamble later in life. So the implementation of the age verification, it would be a mandatory portal prior to getting onto the website. So if it was casino.org, go on. As soon as you would go, it would redirect you, and it would have you supply your correct date of birth and then your last 4 digits of your social security. I chose this option because not only does it prevent use from youth, but it also prevents youth from any non-citizens or anybody who shouldn't be in the United States and taking advantage of the liberties that we earn to be here. Also, while going throughout this seminar series, a petition to have this put into place will be located at each seminar series, so the parents that are there learning about these things can sign this petition and try to get this movement going forward with the government. So why is this the best solution? Because it tackles not only the reason why kids are being interested in gambling, but it also takes out the opportunity for them to find it at such a young age, where it's found that, according to Zhao, if kids find gambling at a younger age, not only does it substantially raise their risk to succumb to these mental health issues and the health issues that come with gambling disorder, but it also makes them think that they're better at gambling. It makes them think that they have control over this, because if they're playing video games, they're having control over what they're doing. They're winning this mad game. They're winning the game, but in gambling, it's a chance. It's chance of luck. It's not skill. So the perceived control of skill over gambling is driven overboard in these kids' brains once they think that they have some kind of control. So in conclusion, My change project would be to educate NFL demographics originally and try to spread throughout the sports landscape and inform these parents that not only is gambling dangerous, but the sooner that these kids find out about it and the more involved they get into it at a younger age, the worse their problems are going to be at a later time. So the sooner you tackle this epidemic and the quicker you tackle it, the better it'll come out in the future. Thank you.